Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by like just state of mind and like how you would I feel like the who and the what of personas is very clear. It's like this person is the age, this amount of income, like all that kind of stuff. But I feel like the state of mind part is a little bit harder. So like, how do you think about that?
It is actually, just as an aside, there was a recent blogger who talked about replacing user stories with job stories.
Yeah. Okay.
And the idea about job stories, maybe search for it in Medium, was talking about like job stories or a person trying to do a thing rather than like this abstract idea of a person, which I thought was really compelling. Anyway, it's kind of an aside. Yeah, so a persona that includes state of mind would not only be like a person who like is in a particular situation on an ongoing basis, such as a small business owner or a teen, but it's also how they show up in that particular experience. So for instance, you're going to have a different state of mind for the same product and the same persona showing up from a viral invite or showing up on the homepage. You might even have a different state of mind showing up in the day versus showing up in the evening. Some apps that connect you with evening activities or like a ride share will actually give you different options based on the time of day. The reason I bring that up is that depending on when you're connecting with this thing, you might need very different things. You could imagine a mobile news app that in the mornings on the mobile page gives you your summary at the top of the page, and in the afternoon doesn't give you a summary. And like, why would it have those different UIs? It's because in the morning you might want to catch up on all your news, and you also might have a longer block of time perhaps during your commute. Whereas in the afternoon, you might want to know what happened just today and pick and choose from the bite-sized news from that day and read it. So thinking really strategically about like not only who my customer is, but how are they feeling right now, and how can I like super serve that particular need?
Yeah. Okay. So how would you get your team to like start figuring out what the state of mind is? Like, how would you coach them to figure all that stuff out?
So one great way is to actually connect them with other people who can tell them stories that you couldn't trustably tell them.
Okay. What do you mean by that? Yeah.
So one great way to do that is to connect them directly with customers, and customers can tell those stories. They don't even necessarily have to sit in the same room with customers. They can watch videos of customer interaction done by your insights team. They can read posts from customers, like on your app store reviews or written into customer service. But those will give them kind of an unfiltered view of like the frustrations people are having. The other thing that I can find quite enlightening is actually looking at like flow data, especially funnel data down to the page and the click, because no matter what you believe about what people should be doing with your website, once you go in there, and every growth marketer has seen this, once you go in and see how people are going through your pages, it's amazing how many people drop off on a page with one button.
Yeah.
And once that happens, it forces you to think for a second of, what happened? Like, what happened from reading this small amount of text, which pitches something that I truly believe in, and then failing to click this button?
Yeah.
70% of the time, something else happened. And so having that kind of situation where you kind of have to start believing that, this isn't as obvious as I thought.
Yeah.
I think that helps.
Yeah. So going back to the psych framework, you mentioned a little bit about users kind of like enter a situation with a certain amount of psych. Like they arrive. It's not like they start they hit your landing page and they're at zero psych. They're arriving with something.
Yeah.
Right. I guess tell me a little bit like what are the factors that you think about on how much psych they actually arrive with? Like what actually affects that?
So in many ways, so I also encourage people just to like think about how they feel when they arrive in an experience themselves.
Okay.
Because that's really what I'm kind of mapping to. And the more you can map this to your own internal kind of feelings, the more valuable this framework is. So when you think about how people arrive and like how psyched they are and how excited they are about something, a lot of it is to do with context and whether it's satisfying one of their needs at the time and how they came upon this thing. For instance, if you would arrive at a sandwich shop at 12:30, there's a pretty good chance that that user, as it were, who's arriving at the sandwich shop is hungry, hasn't eaten since breakfast, and will like wait in a 20-minute line downtown to get a sandwich. There's also a good chance that that user is looking at where other people are eating to figure out what's good, and is going to kind of literally go with their gut to see what might be the best. So if they say a sushi place and a sandwich place, and they grew up on sandwiches, they're probably going to have a sandwich. And so like that's one way to think about it. And the fact that they're hungry means that they're like really psyched, at least in terms of my framework, like another like 85-90%. And they'll go through a lot of barriers, including waiting, paying, and like risking poor quality in order to execute on that. Now, other people you know, if you had a new social gaming app that you were promoting on Facebook, and you put up an ad on Facebook targeted to your demographic, and someone clicked on that ad, the only context they have is the title of the ad, maybe a screenshot you put in or something, and then probably some vague excitement about a game, or like maybe like a little bit of boredom that they have at the moment, and they think maybe I have 5 minutes for this game.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you're starting with. So I would say that's more like a 30 psych. I mean, it's not that they don't want to be there,
Yeah.
but they're not sold on the experience by any measure yet. So if they see a page and it's like, hey, put in your credit card now, they're going to instantly bounce. You know, even if they see a bunch of form fields, or perhaps they don't see a cartoonish, attractive person, they might bounce. They need everything to look great for them to be like, okay, maybe this is the game that I want to continue like spending my next 5 minutes on. So that would be like a low psych experience. So in many ways, you can think of like, you could think of it in terms of the person's need. I like to think of what the person's gating factors are, like what are they looking for in this experience?
Okay.
And then also, like how strong this is for them. Like, this is a bad way of saying it. Like, pretty much like how much kind of momentum do they come into the experience with, I think is a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
For instance, if they came in on a social referral, that's a lot more momentum. Someone else said, this is great, check it out.
A lot more momentum than like a paid ad, or more
Yeah.
momentum than some, okay.
More momentum than a paid ad.
Yeah.
So they would arrive with like more psych. Like if you have the same video game page and you got an invite that like, hey, you got some free gold from your friend who's playing this game, you might show up with a psych of like 50. You're like, hey, like my friend's playing this game, trust my friend, would like to hang out with them, kind of bored right now anyways. Let's check out this game and see if it's fun and see if it's like a way I can interact with my friend.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot more energy and psych than just coming in off an ad.
Yeah. Would you, like in that scenario where they're entering with a lot more psych, would you try to get them to do some, like more work than somebody entering with lower psych, or?
That's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
And so the answer is yes. Or at least in most cases, yes.
Okay.
So the more psych someone has, the more like work they're able to do, because work depletes psych. You know, the more pages you have to go through, putting in your credit card for the free trial, you just kind of like lower, your psych tank gets lower and lower. And in many cases, I think you could kind of chart this, and once the psych tank gets to 0, they bounce.
Right.
And I think this is something that I've never done like mathematically on like a paid large scale, but I mean, I think that there's some math under the cover there of our motions that's different for each user, but you can average that gets you there. Anyways, the other thing about it though is that everything you do with the user is going to use up some psych, and then the things you give back to them are going to give them more psych.
Right.
So if they enter their name and you show them an amazing page that says, "Hi Brian, you're now king of like Balfour Castle," and you're like, "Whoa! All I did was enter my first and last
I'm
name.
good.
I'm winning. Like
Yeah.
I've already beat this game." So that's like a small investment of psych, or like your psych goes down a little bit because you invested putting your first and last name, but then it goes way up because now you're Brian at Balfour Castle.
I got a fucking castle,
Yeah. And so that's a funny example, but it's an example of, I think, how everything needs to take some investment from the user and then give them enough back that they're like, that was awesome, and then usually ask for a bigger investment.
Yeah.
So what you see in a lot of these experiences is a small investment that leads to a small reward, and then they ask for a bigger investment for a bigger reward, and kind of they have that shark tooth zigzag going up until they've kind of gotten you in their biggest plan, until you're in like the gold advanced team plan.
Right.
And you need that sequence. So like for Dropbox, that's a basic user account, then maybe a pro account, then a business account, because very few people are ready to pay for a $750 account when they just show up.